Hi, I'm Trisha Salzer. I'm part of the change management team, and we reviewed the book Who Moved My Cheese as part of our project. The book Who Moved My Cheese is a 5-part book. There's a description of the characters, the story behind the story, an introduction, the story itself, and finally a discussion about the book. There are 4 characters in this book. The author shows how each one of us has a little bit of each character in ourselves. There's Sniff, a mouse who sniffs out change early. Then there's another mouse, Scurry, who is known for scurrying into action. There are also 2 little people, Him, who denies and resists change out of fear, and Haw, who learns to adapt in time as he figures out that change can lead to something better. The main idea of this book is referred to as the cheese. The cheese can mean anything to any one of us. For example, it can mean a job, the way you perform a job, even personal relationships and how we handle them. In the section, The Story Behind the Story, an example is given of how hearing the story of Who Moved the Cheese saved the career of a television broadcaster. I feel this directly relates to our class. In the introduction, A Gathering, the setting is a group of old classmates sitting around talking about life and change. A member of the group tells the others a story. Which is the story? The story starts off with 4 characters, happy as can be, who ran through a maze looking for cheese. The author explains the differences between the mice and the little people. The mice have simple brains, but good instincts, and searched hard for cheese they liked, while the little people, whose brains were filled with many beliefs, looked for cheese that would make them feel happy and successful. The story tells of the 4 characters all finding the cheese they were looking for, and each day they would rush there to enjoy their cheese. A routine was established for each of them, and unexpectedly the cheese moves. When the mice discovered the cheese had been moved, they weren't surprised, and they didn't seem bothered. Sniff lifted his nose in the maze and figured out which direction they should go in search of new cheese, and then had to catch up with Scurry, who was already off, searching for it. The little people were shocked when they discovered their cheese was gone. Haw was stunned in disbelief, and Him was so upset he was yelling. The mice continued to search for new cheese, and found it without much effort, while Him and Haw stayed back, waiting for the cheese to come back. Haw was reluctant to look for new cheese, afraid of getting lost and being made a fool. Him didn't even want to look. He liked it where he was comfortable. Occasionally, Him would get an inspirational thought that he'd want to share, and he would write it on the wall. Him finally got tired of being without cheese and didn't want to be afraid anymore, and he went searching for the cheese. Along the way, he stopped to write his messages on the wall. Eventually, he found it. Of course, Sniff and Scurry were already there. Him is faced with a decision, to go back for Haw or to stay put. He wondered if Haw had figured out yet he needed to go and move on in search of new cheese. The story ends with him hearing footsteps behind him, and although it doesn't actually tell you the ending, it appears as though the footsteps were Haw's, who perhaps had finally learned to move with the cheese and enjoy it. The final part of the book is a discussion. It basically finishes where the gathering ended, with the discussion of the old classmates and how they feel the story relates to them and their lives, and how they wish they'd heard it sooner. I feel this book is very motivational. It tries to teach you to live more simply. Don't be afraid of change. It can be good. We need to realize that change happens and we should anticipate change, keep an eye on changes, and adapt to them quickly. The author wants you to realize that you should enjoy change and enjoy it over and over, as your change doesn't just move once, it moves again and again. Chapter 18 of our text covers change management. People resist change for a variety of reasons. Some general reasons are inertia, poor timing, surprise, and peer pressure. Change-specific reasons are self-interest, misunderstanding, different assessments, and management tactics. There are 3 basic stages in motivating people to change: unfreezing, breaking away from the old way of doing things; moving, instilling the changes; and refreezing, reinforcing and supporting the new ways. There are many methods for managing resistance to change. There are advantages and disadvantages to each method. The methods are education and communication, participation and involvement, facilitation and support, negotiation and rewards, manipulation and cooptation, and explicit and implicit coercion. Some or all might be able to a particular organization or change. Successful change requires managers to lead in 8 activities. They are establishing a sense of urgency, creating the guiding coalition, developing a vision and strategy, communicating the change vision, empowering broad-based action, generating short-term wins, consolidating gains and producing more change, and anchoring new approaches in the culture. In closing, I'd like to get back to the book we reviewed for this project, Who Moved My Cheese? This book will not only help you professionally, but personally too. I think the book teaches us to live more simply and realize that even though we're people, it doesn't mean that we can't think like rodents.